You know what I realized when I was lying in that hospital bed, unable to move anything below my waist? I realized that the world doesn't stop for your pain. The sun still rises, people still go about their daily lives, bills still need to be paid, and life just continues. And in that moment of absolute helplessness, when I felt like my world had ended, I discovered the most powerful truth of human existence: no one will save you. No one can fight your battles. No one can heal your wounds. Only you can. My name is Muniba Mazari, and I want to share with you today, not just my story, but the universal truth that lies within every single one of us. The truth that you are your own hero, your own savior, your own greatest ally in this journey called life. 11 years ago, I was a different person. I was someone who believed that happiness came from external sources, from other people's approval, from perfect circumstances, from having everything go according to plan. I was an artist, yes, but I was also someone who was waiting for life to happen to me, waiting for opportunities to knock on my door, waiting for someone else to validate my dreams. Then came that fateful day in February 2008. A car accident that changed everything. In the span of a few seconds, my spinal cord was crushed, my lungs were punctured, my liver was ruptured, and my arm was fractured in multiple places. The doctors told me I would never walk again. They told me I would never have children. They told me to prepare for a completely different life. But you know what they didn't tell me? They didn't tell me that this moment would become the beginning of my real life. They didn't tell me that sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. They didn't tell me that the person I was about to become would be stronger, more resilient, and more powerful than the person I had ever been. In those first few weeks in the hospital, I waited. I waited for someone to fix me. I waited for a miracle. I waited for the doctors to tell me it was all a mistake. I waited for my husband to stand by me through thick and thin. I waited for my family to carry me through this darkness. And you know what happened? Some people tried to help, and I'm grateful for that. But ultimately, I realized that no one could do the work for me. No one could make me accept this new reality. No one could give me hope. No one could rebuild my life. Only I could. This is the first lesson I want you to understand today. Waiting for rescue is the quickest way to remain trapped. When you sit there waiting for someone else to solve your problems, to chase your dreams for you, to make you happy, to give your life meaning, you give away the most precious thing you possess: your power. I see so many people living their lives in waiting mode. Waiting for the right job to fall into their lap. Waiting for the perfect relationship to heal their wounds. Waiting for their parents to finally approve of their choices. Waiting for society to change so they can be accepted. Waiting for the economy to get better before they start their business. Waiting. But here's what I learned while lying in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling for months. The cavalry isn't coming. There is no rescue mission. There is no magical solution that will appear from the outside. If you want your life to change, if you want to overcome your challenges, if you want to achieve your dreams, you have to stop waiting and start moving. Now, I'm not saying this to discourage you. I'm saying this to liberate you. Because once you accept that you are your own hero, once you stop looking for external salvation, something incredible happens. You discover that you already have everything you need within you. When I finally accepted that I would never walk again, I didn't just accept defeat, I accepted responsibility. I accepted that this was my new reality, and it was up to me to make something beautiful out of it. That's when I stopped being a victim of my circumstances and started being the architect of my new life. I remember the day I decided to paint again. My right arm was still weak from the injuries, but I was determined. I picked up that brush, and my hand was shaking so badly I could barely hold it. The first few strokes were awful. I was frustrated, angry, disappointed. But you know what? I kept painting. Not because someone told me to, not because someone was cheering me on, but because I decided that this was who I wanted to be. A painter, an artist. Someone who creates beauty despite the chaos. And let me tell you something about taking ownership of your life. It's both the most terrifying and the most liberating thing you'll ever do. It's terrifying because you can no longer blame anyone else for your situation. You can't hide behind excuses. You can't wait for perfect conditions. But it's liberating because you realize that if you're the one responsible, you're also the one with the power to change things. I want you to think about your own life right now. What are you waiting for? What excuse are you using to avoid taking action? What external factor are you blaming for your lack of progress? I'm not minimizing your challenges, believe me. I know what real challenges look like. But I'm asking you to shift your focus from what's happening to you to what you're going to do about it. You see, life doesn't ask your permission before it throws curveballs at you. It doesn't consult your schedule before it brings challenges. It doesn't care about your plans when it decides to test your strength. But here's the beautiful thing. You always have a choice in how you respond. When my marriage fell apart after my accident, I could have become bitter. I could have blamed my disability. I could have convinced myself that I was unlovable. Instead, I chose to see it as an opportunity to discover my own strength. I learned that I didn't need someone else to complete me. I was already whole. When I was told I couldn't have children naturally, I could have given up on my dream of motherhood. Instead, I chose to adopt. My son Nail didn't come from my body, but he came from my heart. And let me tell you, the love I feel for him is no less powerful, because he's not biologically mine. Sometimes the most beautiful things in life come not from what we expected, but from what we chose to embrace. This brings me to another crucial point. Your limitations don't define you, your response to them does. I am not defined by my wheelchair. I am defined by what I choose to do while sitting in it. You are not defined by your past mistakes, your current circumstances, or other people's opinions of you. You are defined by the choices you make right now, in this moment. I've had people tell me, Muniba, you're so inspiring because you overcame your disability, but that's not quite right. I didn't overcome my disability. I integrated it into my life story. I made it part of my narrative, not the end of it. The wheelchair didn't become my limitation, it became my platform. From this chair, I've painted artwork that has touched thousands of people. From this chair, I've delivered speeches that have motivated audiences around the world. From this chair, I've raised my son and shown him that strength comes in many forms. You have challenges in your life, we all do. Maybe it's a physical limitation, maybe it's financial struggles, maybe it's a difficult family situation, maybe it's your own mental health battles. But I want you to understand this. Those challenges are not your ending. They're your raw material. They're what you get to work with to create something extraordinary. There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The philosophy behind it is that breakage and repair are part of the object's history, not something to disguise. The final product is often more beautiful than the original, because the golden cracks become part of its unique story. That's what we must do with our lives. We must take our broken pieces and repair them with the gold of our resilience, our courage, our determination. We must stop trying to hide our scars and instead let them become the most beautiful part of our story. But here's the thing about personal transformation. It's not a one-time event. It's not something that happens to you while you sleep. It's a daily choice. Every single day, you wake up and you have to choose again. You have to choose hope over despair. You have to choose action over waiting. You have to choose growth over comfort. I remember there were days, especially in the beginning, when I would wake up and forget for just a moment that I couldn't walk. And then reality would hit me like a wave. Some days I wanted to stay in bed and feel sorry for myself. Some days, I wanted to blame the world for my pain. Some days I wanted to give up. But here's what I learned. You don't have to feel motivated to take action. You don't have to feel confident to try something new. You don't have to feel strong to do the right thing. You just have to decide that you're not going to let your feelings control your choices. On the days when I didn't feel like painting, I painted anyway. On the days when I didn't want to speak to audiences, I spoke anyway. On the days when I didn't feel like being a good mother, I showed up for my son anyway. Because I realized that discipline isn't about doing what you want to do. It's about doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. And you know what happened. The more I took action despite not feeling like it, the more confident I became. The more I pushed through the discomfort, the stronger I grew. The more I chose courage over comfort, the more natural courage became for me. This is something I want you to really understand. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You don't need to wait until you have all the answers. You don't need to wait until conditions are perfect. You just need to start where you are, with what you have, and trust that you'll figure it out along the way. When I started painting again after my accident, I didn't know if I would ever be good at it with my limited mobility. When I started speaking publicly, I didn't know if anyone would want to hear what I had to say. When I decided to adopt Nail, I didn't know if I would be a good mother. I just knew that these were the things that mattered to me, and I was willing to learn as I went. And that's another important lesson. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to figure it out. Life is not about having a perfect plan. It's about being adaptable enough to handle whatever comes your way. I've met so many talented people who never pursue their dreams because they're waiting for guarantees. They want to know for certain that they'll succeed before they begin. But here's the truth, there are no guarantees in life except this one. If you don't try, you've already failed. The only way to guarantee failure is to never attempt. The only way to ensure you'll never reach your dreams is to never take the first step toward them. The only way to make sure you'll never overcome your challenges is to never face them head on. I want to tell you about a woman I met at one of my exhibitions. She came up to me with tears in her eyes and said, "Muniba, I've been telling myself for 5 years that I want to start my own business, but I keep waiting for the right time. Seeing your art, hearing your story, I realize I've been making excuses. If you can create such beauty from a hospital bed, I can certainly start my business from my kitchen table." 6 months later, she sent me a photo of her storefront. She had stopped waiting and started acting. She had stopped looking for someone to give her permission and gave it to herself. She had stopped waiting for perfect conditions and made the most of her current ones. That's the power of taking ownership of your life. When you stop waiting for external validation, external permission, external perfect timing, you realize that the power was always within you. You just had to be brave enough to use it. Now, I want to address something important. When I say, no one will help you, only you can, I'm not saying you should never accept help from others. I'm not promoting isolation or stubborn independence. What I'm saying is that you cannot make other people responsible for your happiness, your success, your healing, or your dreams. Help is beautiful when it comes. Support is wonderful when it's offered. Love is precious when it's genuine. But none of these things can substitute for your own commitment to yourself. None of these things can replace your own effort, your own choices, your own determination to create the life you want. I've been blessed with people who have supported me along my journey. My mother, who never let me feel sorry for myself. My son, who reminds me daily what love looks like. Friends who believe in my work. Audiences who respond to my message. But at the end of the day, it was still me who had to pick up the brush. It was still me who had to find the courage to speak my truth. It was still me who had to choose hope over despair, day after day after day. And that's true for you too. People can encourage you, but they can't give you confidence. That has to come from within. People can support your dreams, but they can't chase them for you. That's your job. People can love you, but they can't make you love yourself. That's work only you can do. The most empowering realization you can have is this: if the solution to your problems lies within you, then you're never really powerless. You might be challenged, you might be struggling, you might be afraid, but you're never powerless. Because as long as you can choose your response to any situation, you retain your power. Let me share with you a story about a young woman who attended one of my talks. She had been struggling with depression for years. She had tried therapy, medication, support groups, all helpful tools, but she was still waiting for something external to fix her. After my speech, she came to me and said, "I keep waiting for depression to leave me alone so I can start living my life. But listening to you, I realize I've been thinking about this backwards. Maybe I need to start living my life and let depression figure out where it fits." 2 years later, she contacted me again. She hadn't been cured of depression. Mental health doesn't work that way. But she had learned to live with it rather than being controlled by it. She had started the art therapy program she'd been dreaming about. She had moved to the city she'd always wanted to live in. She had built relationships that mattered to her. She stopped waiting for permission from her mental health and started creating a life that was worth fighting for every day. That's what I mean when I say only you can save yourself. It's not about doing it alone. It's about taking responsibility for your own rescue mission. And here's something else I've learned. The very things that make you feel weak can become your greatest sources of strength. My wheelchair, which initially felt like a symbol of everything I had lost, has become the platform from which I share my message with the world. My inability to have biological children, which once felt like a devastating limitation, led me to the joy of adoption and showed me that love has nothing to do with DNA. What in your life feels like a disadvantage right now? What seems like an insurmountable obstacle? I challenge you to consider this. What if that very thing is actually preparing you for something greater? What if your struggle is not your ending, but your beginning? I think about all the times I wished things were different. I wished I could walk. I wished I had never been in that accident. I wished my marriage had survived. I wished things were easier. But you know what? If I could go back and change any of it, I wouldn't. Because every single challenge, every single loss, every single moment of pain has contributed to who I am today. And I like who I am today. This is not about being grateful for trauma or pretending that pain is a gift. This is about recognizing that you have the power to transform even your worst experiences into something meaningful. You have the ability to take what has hurt you and use it to help others. You have the strength to take what has broken you and rebuild something even more beautiful. But this transformation doesn't happen automatically. It doesn't happen just because time passes. It happens because you make a conscious choice to grow from your experiences rather than just survive them. It happens because you decide that your story is not ending with your challenge. Your challenge is just the plot twist that makes your story more interesting. I want to talk to you about fear, because I know fear is often what keeps us from taking ownership of our lives. Fear tells us that we're not strong enough, smart enough, capable enough to handle our own problems. Fear tells us that we need someone else to save us, because we're not equipped to save ourselves. But here's what I've learned about fear. It's not your enemy, it's your compass. Fear points you toward what matters most to you. I was afraid to paint again because painting mattered to me. I was afraid to speak publicly because having a voice mattered to me. I was afraid to adopt because being a mother mattered to me. Fear doesn't mean you shouldn't do something. It often means you absolutely should do it, because the things that scare us are usually the things that have the power to transform us. I remember the first time I was invited to speak to a large audience. I was terrified. I thought, who am I to stand in front of hundreds of people and tell them how to live their lives? I'm just a woman in a wheelchair who's trying to figure it out like everyone else. But then I realized that's exactly why I needed to speak. Not because I had all the answers, but because I had learned that you don't need all the answers to take the next step. Not because my life was perfect, but because I had learned that perfection isn't the goal, progress is. That first speech was not polished. I stumbled over words. My voice shook. I probably said 100 times, but I spoke my truth, and people connected with that truth. Because authenticity is more powerful than perfection. Because vulnerability is more inspiring than invulnerability. And you know what happened? Each time I spoke, I got a little braver. Each time I shared my story, I became a little more confident in my message. Each time I chose courage over comfort, courage became more natural for me. This is how growth works. You don't become brave and then do brave things. You do brave things and that makes you brave. You don't become confident and then take on challenges. You take on challenges and that builds your confidence. You don't become strong and then face difficulties. You face difficulties and that develops your strength. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting to feel qualified. Stop waiting to feel confident. Start where you are, with what you have, and trust that the act of starting will develop the qualities you think you need to finish. Let me tell you about the day I decided to become a motivational speaker. I was sitting in my art studio, working on a painting, when a woman called me. She had seen my artwork online and wanted to know if I would speak at her company's annual meeting. My first instinct was to say no. I thought, I'm an artist, not a speaker. I don't have training in public speaking. I don't have a degree in psychology or life coaching. Who am I to motivate anyone? But then I thought about all the people who had told me that my art inspired them, that my story gave them hope. I thought about all the young women who had reached out to me saying they felt like giving up until they heard about my journey. I realized that my qualification wasn't a certificate on a wall. It was my lived experience and my willingness to share it vulnerably. That speaking engagement changed everything for me, not because I was perfect at it, but because I was real about it. I talked about my struggles, my fears, my failures, and my small victories. And people responded not to my expertise, but to my authenticity. That's when I learned that you don't need to be an expert to make a difference. You just need to be genuine. You don't need to have overcome everything to help someone else take their next step. You just need to be willing to share what you've learned along the way. And this brings me to another important point. Your purpose in life is not just about you. Yes, you need to save yourself, no one else can do that for you. But once you start doing the work of rebuilding, healing, growing and becoming, you'll find that your journey has the power to light the way for others. My accident wasn't just something that happened to me, it became something that could serve others. My art isn't just my personal expression, it becomes a source of inspiration for people who see it. My story isn't just my story, it becomes permission for others to write their own comeback stories. When you take ownership of your life, when you stop waiting for rescue and start doing the work of self-rescue, you don't just transform your own life, you give others permission to transform theirs. You become proof that it's possible. You become evidence that the human spirit is stronger than human circumstances. I think about my son Neil, and how he sees strength not as the absence of challenges, but as the decision to keep going despite them. He doesn't see my wheelchair as a symbol of limitation. He sees it as part of who his mother is, and his mother is someone who creates beautiful things and helps people believe in themselves. What example are you setting with your life? What message are you sending about what's possible? Are you showing the world that circumstances determine destiny? Or are you demonstrating that we determine how we respond to our circumstances? Every time you choose hope over despair, you're voting for what kind of world you want to live in. Every time you choose action over excuses, you're modeling what's possible for someone who's watching. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you're expanding the definition of what it means to be human. But let me be clear about something. This is not about toxic positivity. This is not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is not about suppressing your emotions or denying your pain. I have bad days. I have days when I cry. I have days when I feel angry about my circumstances. I have days when I wish things were different. The difference is that I don't let those days define me. I feel my feelings fully, and then I choose my actions consciously. I acknowledge my pain without letting it become my identity. I honor my struggles without letting them become my excuses. There's a difference between feeling your emotions and being controlled by them. There's a difference between acknowledging your challenges and being defeated by them. There's a difference between having a bad day and having a bad life. You are allowed to grieve what you've lost. You are allowed to feel angry about what's unfair. You are allowed to have days when you don't feel strong. But you are not allowed to use these feelings as reasons to stop trying. You are not allowed to use your pain as permission to give up on yourself. Because here's the thing about giving up, it doesn't actually stop the pain. It just ensures that the pain was for nothing. When you give up on your dreams, on your growth, on your healing, you don't eliminate suffering. You just make sure that your suffering doesn't serve any purpose. But when you keep going, when you keep trying, when you keep growing despite the pain, you transform your suffering into strength. You turn your wounds into wisdom. You convert your obstacles into opportunities. I want to tell you about a letter I received from a young man who had been in a motorcycle accident. He had lost his leg and was contemplating ending his life. He wrote to me saying that he couldn't see any point in living with his disability. He felt like his life was over at 23. I wrote back to him, and I said, "Your accident took your leg. Don't let your thoughts take your life. You are not your body parts, you are your spirit, your mind, your heart, your dreams. Those are all still intact. Your life is not over, it's just beginning in a new form." A year later, he sent me a photo of himself competing in a Paralympic swimming event. He had discovered that losing his leg had actually made him more aerodynamic in the water. What had seemed like an ending had become a new beginning. That's the power of perspective. That's the magic that happens when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances and start seeing yourself as the hero of your story. Your story is not over. Whatever chapter you're in right now, whether it's the chapter of loss, the chapter of struggle, the chapter of uncertainty, it's not the final chapter. You are still writing your story, and you get to decide how it unfolds from here. But you have to pick up the pen. You have to take responsibility for the next chapter. You have to stop waiting for someone else to write your story for you, and start writing it yourself. And let me tell you something about the stories worth reading. They're not the ones where everything goes perfectly. They're not the ones where the hero never faces challenges. The stories that move us, that inspire us, that we remember, those are the stories where someone faces impossible odds and finds a way to overcome them. Those are the stories where someone is knocked down and finds the strength to get back up. Those are the stories where someone discovers that they were stronger than they ever imagined. That's your story. You are the hero of a story worth telling. But heroes don't wait for rescue, they become the rescue. Heroes don't wait for perfect conditions, they make the most of the conditions they have. Heroes don't wait for someone else to solve their problems. They develop the skills, the strength, and the wisdom to solve their own problems. And here's the beautiful irony. When you become your own hero, when you take full responsibility for your own rescue, you actually become more capable of truly helping others. When you're not desperate for someone else to save you, you can offer genuine support to those around you. When you're not waiting for external validation, you can provide authentic encouragement to others. The people who make the biggest difference in the world are not those who have had easy lives. They're the ones who have faced difficulties and learned from them. They're the ones who have been knocked down and developed resilience. They're the ones who have experienced pain and transformed it into compassion for others. Your struggles are not disqualifying you from making a difference. They're preparing you for it. Your challenges are not evidence that you're weak. They're proof that you're being strengthened. Your obstacles are not signs that you're on the wrong path. They're confirmation that you're on a path worth walking. But you have to keep walking. You have to keep moving forward, even when you can't see the destination. You have to keep believing in yourself, even when others doubt you. You have to keep working toward your dreams, even when progress seems slow. Because here's what I've learned: success is not about avoiding failure. Success is about continuing despite failure. Strength is not about never falling down. Strength is about getting back up every time you fall. Courage is not about not being afraid. Courage is about being afraid and taking action anyway. You have everything you need within you right now to take the next step. You might not have everything you need to reach your final destination, but you have everything you need to move forward from where you are. And that's all you need to do. Just take the next step. Stop looking for someone to give you permission to pursue your dreams. Give yourself permission. Stop waiting for someone to tell you that you're good enough. Decide for yourself that you're worthy of your own efforts. Stop hoping that someone will rescue you from your circumstances. Become your own rescue mission. The world needs what you have to offer. The world needs your unique perspective, your particular gifts, your specific experiences. The world needs you to stop hiding behind your fears and start sharing your light. The world needs you to stop waiting for perfect timing and start making the most of right now. But most importantly, you need this. You need to discover what you're capable of. You need to find out how strong you really are. You need to learn that you are more resilient, more creative, more powerful than you ever imagined. You need to prove to yourself that you don't need external rescue because you are perfectly capable of internal rescue. Your life is not a dress rehearsal. This is not a practice round. This is the real thing, and you are the star of your own show. You get to decide whether it's a tragedy or a triumph. You get to choose whether you're the victim or the hero. You get to determine whether your challenges define you or refine you. I am sitting here in my wheelchair, looking out at all of you, and I want you to know something. I am not inspirational because of what happened to me. I am inspirational because of what I chose to do with what happened to me. You have that same choice available to you right now, today, in this moment. Whatever you're facing, whether it's a physical challenge, an emotional struggle, a financial difficulty, a relationship problem, a career setback, or any other obstacle, you have the power to choose your response. You have the ability to decide what this experience will mean in your life story. You have the strength to determine whether this will be the chapter where you gave up or the chapter where you discovered what you're truly made of. The cavalry is not coming. The rescue mission is not en route. The perfect timing is not going to arrive. The ideal conditions are not going to materialize. But you know what? You don't need any of those things. You never did. You just thought you did because no one ever told you the truth. You are enough. Right now, as you are, with what you have, you are enough to begin. You are enough to take the first step. You are enough to try something new. You are enough to start that business, write that book, have that difficult conversation, make that change, pursue that dream. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be guaranteed success. You just need to be willing to begin. And once you begin, something magical happens. You discover that beginning was the hardest part. Once you start moving, momentum builds. Once you take action, confidence follows. Once you prove to yourself that you can take one step, you realize you can take another, and another, and another. Before you know it, you'll look back and realize that you've traveled further than you ever thought possible. You'll see that you've overcome obstacles you once thought were insurmountable. You'll understand that you've become someone you didn't even know you could be. That journey starts today. That journey starts right now. That journey starts with you accepting this truth. No one is coming to save you. But that's okay, because you don't need to be saved. You need to be awakened. You need to be reminded of the power that has always been within you. You need to be encouraged to use the strength you've always possessed. I am not here to save you. I am here to remind you that you can save yourself. I am not here to give you power. I am here to help you remember the power you already have. I am not here to fix your problems. I am here to inspire you to develop the skills to fix your own problems. Because when you learn to save yourself, you don't just change your own life, you change the lives of everyone around you. When you discover your own strength, you give others permission to discover theirs. When you become your own hero, you prove that heroism is possible for anyone willing to choose it. So my question for you today is this: what are you waiting for? What permission are you seeking? What perfect moment are you anticipating? What rescue are you hoping will arrive? Stop waiting. Start working. Stop hoping. Stop wishing. Start becoming. Your life is calling you. Your dreams are